Good morning. We're here with RTV in Sutter Creek at Knight Foundry. We're having a special event today to dedicate a new plaque with the Native Sons of the Golden West, and we're redesignating a plaque that was put here almost 25 years ago by the American Society of Mechanical Engineers. So we have people from ASME regional in California, as well as reps from the East Coast. Native Sons, Eric Christensen, Grand President this year with Native Sons. And then we have a large group of Native Sons people as well as ASME members here today. Lee Langston with ASME East Coast, and Jeff Muss is the regional chair out of the Sacramento Sierra region. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That's right.
And then Jack Mitchell's going to be coming in as part of our program later. Jack and the Ledger Dispatch, his staff, recreated. Take a look at this new brochure.
Limited edition. The new limited edition brochure for Knight Foundry. We're going to present that today for the folks that are here, and we'll have some more stuff coming up.
As part of the original program with ASME, we did a brochure covering the history of the site, and because in this instance we're including Native Sons, the booklet has been relayed out with ASME and Native Sons of the Golden West. So, if you want to say, somebody from ASME want to say a few words?
Why don't you start?
Sure. I mean, we're really honored to have not one but two historic landmarks here in the world of mechanical engineering. There's the Knight Foundry, which is a great example of the old, early water-powered machine shop, and the Folsom Powerhouse 2 is one of the oldest powerhouses in the country. We're very honored to have these in the Sacramento area, and this is a great opportunity for people to come out and see what the region has to offer and see how things were done in days gone by.
I'm Lee Langston. I'm representing the History and Heritage Committee of ASME, and we're proud to be here to rededicate the plaque that's going to be reset here. And for myself, as a turbine engineer, this is a great place to be because this is one of the earliest impulse turbines that was developed in this gold country, and it's just a fantastic place to be for the history of engineering.
I'm Eric Christensen with Native Sons of the Golden West. I'm the Grand President for the entire state, and it's a real honor to be able to rededicate the Knight Foundry, in particular because we had a plaque here originally, and it's nice to bring another plaque that honors the Native Sons that actually worked in Knight Foundry throughout all these years. There's a member in our parlor, Paul Lefty Sakini, who actually worked here in the 80s, and I know he's going to be here today, and it's a real privilege to do that. It's also an honor because I'm an Amador County boy. This is where I live. This is where my parlor is, even though it's an Excelsior parlor in Jackson, and this is Amador. This is a great parlor, great bunch of guys. I really appreciate all that my chair of my history board, Ed Arad, has done in presenting this and getting this part of this program. And as a fellow with the American Society of Civil Engineers, I'm glad to see my brethren from the mechanical side here as well.
Thank you. So Jack Mitchell with the Ledger Dispatch. I think what you're seeing today here at the Knight Foundry represents probably the very best of California, the best of Amador County, a diverse group of people, a diverse group of organizations, volunteers coming together. We have a shared history, a shared home, and that's what today is about. So congratulations to Knight Foundry, and on behalf of RTV, this is Jack Mitchell. We'll see you soon.
Good morning. We're going to start this program. It's great to see so many people showing up to help us continue to honor Knight Foundry and help us in our efforts to preserve this site. welcome to all the ASME Native Sons of the Golden West who are here today, and the public that's here. What's gone on here in the last year could not have happened first without the Sutter Creek City Council. Robin Peters, Tim Murphy took the program and convinced the City Council that it was appropriate to attempt to buy this site and then preserve it. So we have some members of the City Council with us today. Josie Failers, Robin Peters. Who am I missing?
That's it.
That's who we have today. And then the rest of the City Council, Linda Rianda, Jim Swift, Tim Murphy, and I think Amy's here today. Is Amy?
City manager, yeah.
Gedney, the city manager here? We had to, I think Robin and Tim really had to twist Amy's arm, and we appreciate all of her support. And then, beyond that, once the ball got rolling, a group of citizens had to come together. And we currently have a board, Night Foundry Alliance, that's made up of Robin Peters, Josie Failers, Frank Kuna, Ron Edgar, Joe Harrelson, Karma Zeisman, and myself. There are many other people who are helping with this whole effort, but what you have to remember is between the city and this group of volunteers, they raised $325,000 plus in less than 6 months. There's enough interest in this site. That's the first step. There's enough interest in this site to help preserve it, to present it to the people of California and the world. And then beyond that, Ron Edgar, Joe Harrelson have led. Is there somebody else I'm missing? The leaders of the volunteer group?
They're all leaders.
You're seeing, a year ago there was plywood on these windows. You're seeing new windows, you're seeing new doors, you're seeing the place cleaned up. Just the tip of the iceberg, but it's all driven by Ron and Joe and their volunteers. So if you're interested, know people that are interested, we'd love to have them come by. This project's going to take years, but it'll be cool for Sutter Creek, Amador County in the future. We have one very special guest with us today. We have Beverly and Walt Prowell from the Monterey area. Beverly's great-great-grandmother was Samuel Knight's sister. So if they will... They learned of this program. They've communicated with Night Foundry over time, but as this new effort came back to life, they communicated with the Night Foundry Alliance people, and they've made a donation to help preserve the site, and they're joining us here today. So we're happy to have them and see them in Sutter Creek.
My pleasure.
So when I started to write these notes, I was only going to say, well, we're welcoming the ASME back to rededicate their plaque from 23 years ago. But then I had to look at the plaque that's here at the front of the building, and the native sons and native daughters were here in 1967. They first recognized this site. The owner at that time was a man named Herman Nelson. Herman Nelson was from Calaveras County, and the native sons were here with the native daughters to put the first stone plaque with the Night water wheel. And then later on, as I mentioned, ASME was here to present the plaque back in 94, 95. There are many this site is recognized on a number of different levels. Back in 1972, on the door over there, by the door, is a National Register of Historic Places. Carl Borg was the owner at that time, and that plaque was placed to recognize the site as a nationally significant site. And then, back in 1992, the cast iron plaque here was placed by Carl Borg and Historic Knight and Company to make it a California state landmark. So the Foundry is significant on all different kinds of levels and interests for people around the nation. We're here today at this place because of a long line of people who cared for the site. Sam Knight, Dan Ramazzotti, Herman Nelson, Carl Borg, and many, many others. And as I mentioned, we now have a huge group of volunteers who are caring for the site to preserve it. It's not 1873, it's not 1900, it's not 1950, or it's not even 1995. But what remains is one of the few examples of early California manufacturing. You'll see it, if you haven't seen it, you'll see it today. It's significant for just historic tourism and then educational programs. With years of work ahead of us, we'll stabilize and restore the site and make available to the public. Your being here to honor it and recognize this site helps us in all those efforts. Spread the word. That's all I have for now. We have two programs today. The American Society of Mechanical Engineers, ASME. Jeff Muss is here. He's the program chair of the Sacramento Sierra Nevada section of ASME. He will introduce his people and they will then rededicate their plaque. Jeff?
Thank you, Ed. And you know, Ed has been very modest. This whole program and much of what's going on here is been led by Ed and the board of the Knight Foundry Alliance, but it's really been Ed that's been pushing this program forward. On behalf of the American Society of Mechanical Engineers and the local Sierra Nevada Sacramento section, I'd like to thank everybody for coming to this event. It's great to acknowledge the history that we have here and the significance of Knight Foundry that everybody that's been involved has worked so hard to preserve. I'd like to commend the City of Sutter Creek and the members of the Knight Foundry Alliance for their vision and enthusiasm that has led to the renewed and continuing renewal of the site to preserve this local and internationally historic site. I'd like to welcome the Native Daughters and Sons of the Golden West, who should really be recognized for their long history of preserving and really celebrating the early parts of the state and the state historical things, and particularly the locals parlor that has contributed numerous hours and dollars to preserving the Knight Foundry and other historical sites around the area. And finally, I'd like to thank our local ASME members that have made the effort to come up to this, support this activity, our renewed commitment to Knight's Foundry and trying to keep this well-selected historical site as a significant place in the Sierra Sacramento area. We have two people from the national organization. Mr. Will Hayward is here from the ASME Communications Office, and Dr. Lee Langston is here from the ASME Historical Mechanical Engineering Historical Landmark Program. Dr. Langston is going to come and rededicate the Foundry plaque. Dr. Langston.
Thank you, Jeff. Pleasure to be here, all the way from Connecticut.
but I graduated from Stanford in '64, so I know a little bit about California. ASME has recognized 265 mechanical engineering landmark sites, collections worldwide. It's mainly through the efforts of enthusiasts in local communities like Sutter Creek that we're able to remind the public of the importance of these engineering marvels. ASME's honor came 23 years ago, however the native sons of the Golden West were here long before. We would like to acknowledge the Sutter Creek City Council, the Knight Foundation Alliance and its collection of volunteers, whose preservation efforts continue to this day. We'd also like to give special recognition to KFA's Ed Arata, who made the call to our offices in New York about a year ago, informing us about the reopening of the Foundry, and the ASME Sacramento section and its program chair, Jeff Muss, who has put in more than a few hours in this project himself. Dedications like this historic Knight Foundation remind all of us, engineers and non-engineers, that mechanical engineering advances technology because we had the good fortune to benefit from pioneers like Samuel Knight and the many workers at his foundry. As a turbine engineer myself, I'm particularly struck by his 1875 patent and subsequent production of the Knight water wheel, which was a true innovation in the world of water power. Going back to ancient Greece, I cite an 18 BC poem by Antipater of Thessalonica, and here's the poem, 18 BC. Cease your work, you who have labored at the mill. Sleep now and let the birds sing to the ruddy morn. Mother Earth has commanded the water nymphs to perform your task, and these, obedient to her call, throw themselves on the wheel, force through the axle tree, and sow the heavy mill. So that goes back quite a bit. Knight's impulse water turbine was an important step to the now modern Pelton turbine used worldwide in electrical production. I go to Switzerland and I hear Swiss engineers saying, well, there's some people in California came up with this or something. I'm not too proud to say that. The original plaque, which has been skillfully restored by Ron Edgar, says, and I'll quickly read the plaque, which is right here and been restored since it's been a couple of years. This is one of the nation's earliest foundry machine shops remaining in operation and one of the very few water-powered. It was founded by Samuel N. Knight, 1838 to 1913, to manufacture machinery for the gold mines of the region. Knight was one of the several inventors experimenting with impulse turbines to exploit the area's high head water power for driving hoists, ore stamps, and other mining and machinery. He patented an efficient water wheel that came to dominate the field prior to the introduction of the Pelton turbine in the mid-1880s. Knight turbines drive most of the machinery here. Thank you very much.
As part of the original program, as part of the ASME program of dedicating a plaque, they request that the organization, the site, generate a history booklet. This is the history booklet from the 1990s that we did for the site, telling the history of Knight Foundry. As we went into this process, we're out of these. There aren't many of these originals left. As we went through the process of developing this program, and now including Native Sons of the Golden West, we approached the local newspaper, Amador Ledger Dispatch, Jack Mitchell and his staff, and they totally reworked the booklet for us. Some of them have been passed out. If you don't have a copy, get a copy before you leave today. We've taken it, it's basically the same history story with a few corrections, but now we've added the Native Sons plaque into the booklet, so that we now have a booklet that talks about both plaques and the participation of both groups. Jack Mitchell and I don't always agree on public issues, but we always agree on history. Jack, there's another paper around here today. Jack and the Ledger-Dispatch reproduced this 1897 special edition. So Jack, the Ledger-Dispatch, are great supporters of history. If I can introduce Jack Mitchell, and he'll tell you about his company.
So I'd just like to take for about a half hour and go. As usual, I handed off all of the work to my staff, so certainly Caitlin Scott put this together, and it was truly an honor. I think for us, the beauty of today, oh, and I do have to mention the Golden Sons, Native Sons, for me, they saved my archives. So if you go on our website, little self-pitch, from 1855, almost to modern day, we've got our archives saved forever, which is phenomenal. So I thank you, gentlemen, and I haven't had a chance to see all of you. But really, for Knight Foundry, I think one of the really great things as you go through this and you look at some of the volunteers that are listed, and there's many that obviously aren't listed on here, but if you look at the diversity of the groups that came together to make this happen, the diversity, it represents the best of California, it represents the best of Amador County, and certainly the best of Sutter Creek. Diversity coming together on a shared history and a shared home and protecting and saving that, and that is something that Ed and I always will agree upon. And it's been a true honor. Thank you. And make sure you get a copy.
Okay, last but certainly not least, Native Sons will dedicate their plaque. What I need to remind you is Native Sons made a significant contribution. City of Sutter Creek, KFA, needed to raise $325,000. Native Sons kicked in $50,000 to help buy this site. So, that's this project. Back a year or two ago, they did significant funding and volunteer help for the development of Miners Bend at the south end of town. If you haven't seen Miners Bend while you're in town, please take a few minutes and look at that project. All projects that we're trying to promote and save the history of Amador County. All right, I will like to introduce Eric Christensen. He will bring his crew in for the dedication program of the Native Sons plaque.
Ed made an extraordinarily important point, that the generosity of Amador 17 and the brothers that are on the board for Knight Foundry, as well as active in their community. Ed's also very involved with restoring a lot of the fire equipment at the old firehouse in Sutter Creek. So I'd like to acknowledge all the members of Amador 17. Would you just raise your hands so everybody can see who all of you are? I'd also like to acknowledge the chairman of the Native Sons Historic Preservation Foundation, who contributes funds in addition to those of local parlors. They contribute statewide to historic projects, and that is past Grand President Dave Allen from Auburn 59. And finally, last but not least, who I'd like to introduce is a dear friend of mine from South San Francisco, 157. He worked for Mr. Borg in the 1960s and now attends all of the Excelsior meetings because he doesn't feel like driving from Pine Grove to South San Francisco. Mr. Paul Lefty Sakini. With that, we will start our ceremony, and it won't be half an hour like Jack promised. It'll be a little bit shorter than that. This extraordinary session of the 141st Grand Parlor of the Native Sons of the Golden West is now assembled. That we may fittingly open our labors, the worthy Junior Past Grand President will now offer prayer.
Please remove your hats. Let us bow our heads in prayer. O great designer and builder of the universe, thou master of time and space, we ask thy blessing upon the work we are here to commence. We beseech thy favor upon the workmen here engaged. We supplicate thee to strengthen the hands of all in worthy endeavors, to give unto us, to realize our full aspirations in this building, to make it stand against the storm of time and evil, to permit it to endure against ignorance, injustice, and intolerance. Bless those who shall teach truth, aid those who shall seek justice, reward those who shall maintain honor, preserve unto us our liberties and the traditions of our forefathers, give unto our citizens courage and understanding, endow our government and our nation with enduring wisdom, complete toleration, and eternal independence. Let our light shine upon the whole world to the end that peace, prosperity, equality, and liberty shall be the portion of all men. And to thee shall be all the praise and glory forever. Amen.
By virtue of my office, I now proclaim the 141st Grand Parlor of the Native Sons of the Golden West convened in extraordinary session for the purpose of dedicating the Knight Foundry. Worthy First Vice President, whence came these sands and gravel, and what do they signify?
Worthy Grand President, this sand and this gravel were gathered from all the counties of California, from her mountains, her rivers, and her valleys. From Del Norte, where the northern boundary emerges from the Pacific. From Modoc, where the northern line intercepts the 120th meridian. From Lake Tahoe, where the boundary departs the meridian to strike the Colorado River. From Colorado at the Mexican line. From San Diego, where our southern boundary meets the waters of the oceans of peace. It typifies the natural greatness and resources of California, untouched by the arts of man. It is the essence of her being, the foundation laid by the Creator upon which our fathers built this great state.
Worthy Grand Second Vice President, whence came this cement and what is the meaning of its presence?
Worthy Grand President, this cement comes from all the mills of California, from Riverside, from Colton, from San Juan, from Santa Cruz, from San Andreas, from Redwood City, from Permanente. From all places within our state where the skill of man transforms the natural rock into a needful element of construction. It typifies the industry and efforts of mankind. It brings to our minds the proof that man has harnessed the forces of nature and has wrought well for the advancement of humanity. As it is a necessary element of construction, it symbolizes the truth that reason and energy of man is necessary to bind together the elements of society that a perfect state may exist.
Worthy Grand Third Vice President, whence came this water and what does it tell us?
Worthy Grand President, this water is brought from the side of each of the commissions of California. From San Diego, founded in 1769, to Sonoma, founded in 1823. It speaks to us of the saintly Junipero, of the intrepid Anza, of the patient Lausen, of the gallant Portolo, of the devoted Duran. It tells of the discoverer Cabrillo, the explorer Vizcaíno, and the soldier Galvez. It brings to our minds that still more important era than the sons of Colombia established respect for law and right without the power of force, and built here by the strength of their own will a great state. It calls to the memory all the beauties of the traditions of the past. It is symbolic of the spirit that made and preserved us as a nation. It typifies the reverence that we feel for established government, for law, and for justice. It is here as a symbol of patriotism and loyalty. it admonishes us that the resources of nature and the energy of man cannot accomplish lasting results unless mingled with the lessons and traditions of the past. May the resources of nature, mingled with the energy of man, produce fit material from which to build a splendid future. May the traditions and lessons of the past ever keep us true to our duty. May the example of our forefathers hold us fast to our destined work. I'm glad it's mechanical engineers here, not civil. That's a terrible slump on that. Thus, with the bounteous resources of nature do we mingle the energy and reason of man to produce the present. The present is like unto this mortar, which we may mold and shape at our will. If we have made it according to the teachings of the past, it will harden into history that will glorify us. But errors on our part will forever show in the hardened mass. The present is ours, but the present will soon be the past. We shall pass on into history. Let our work be worthily done to that end, that our characters will make good history. On behalf of all men who love truth, justice, equality, independence, and toleration, I now declare the Knight Foundry well and truly rededicated. And as our native state has contributed to the mortar with which this plaque is sealed, so may the hearts of men cherish and defend liberty and justice. May law ever prevail. May loyalty ever move the sons of California to preserve the spirit of 49. And may California ever prosper as the home of freeborn, tolerant Americans. The Junior Past Grand President will now ask the favor of heaven upon our work.
Please remove your hats. Father Eternal, lift up the hearts of all men. Give them to act beyond their words. Make their practices equal to their promise. Extend thy divine protection to the work of this day. Cause this building to be a beacon of light and hope to all the inhabitants hereabout. Endow all who shall labor herein with truth and wisdom. Bless all who shall labor for the advancement of our country and its people. Preserve unto us the inheritance of our fathers. Give unto our children greater light than was given to us. And eternal rest grant unto all those who shall fall in the battle of life. Amen.
Amen. The work for which we have assembled now being completed, I now declare the 141st Grand Parlor of the Native Sons of the Golden West Extraordinary Session duly convened. I would encourage you each to come up and read the plaque as we go forward. And at this time I'd like to introduce the team that took part in today's ceremony. If I use the term grand or past grand, it means they are or were a statewide elected officer. Beginning with my first vice president. He is the Grand First Vice President from Santa Lucia Parlor, number 97 in Salinas, Carrie Pierce. Taking the part of the Second Vice President is the Grand Second Vice President from San Miguel, number 150 in San Miguel, California, James P. King. And taking the part of the Third Vice President is the Grand Third Vice President from Rio Hondo Parlor 294 in Los Angeles, Joe Castillo. And taking the part of the Junior Past President is the Junior Past Grand President of our order from South San Francisco, number 157, Paul D. Lapachet.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege to introduce the brother who took the part of the president for this morning's dedication. He is the Grand President of the Native Sons of the Golden West from Excelsior Parlor number 31 in Jackson, Eric M. Christensen.
I would like to acknowledge all the Native Sons that came from all over this great state. We have 73 parlors in this state, extending from El Centro in the far southeast to Eureka in the far northwest. Today we have brothers all the way from San Bernardino and Los Angeles in the south, and I think our northmost is either Oroville or Petaluma. I'm not sure. Oroville's going to claim it. Okay, so Oroville's claiming it. AJ's claiming it. I'm pleased to see each and every one of you made the long drive. I know everyone appreciates it. I also would encourage everyone to attend another dedication we have today at 3 o'clock. We're dedicating Teresa's Place, which I believe is long overdue. The Gerlani family has been kind enough to allow us to dedicate that, so I would encourage you, after you enjoy the tour here at Night Foundry and enjoy a good lunch in Sutter Creek and stop at Leone Wines and see Brother Campbell's winery, that you come to Teresa's Place at 3 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you to the Native Sons for being here, and thank you for their support. When you read either the plaque here or in the booklet, the plaque is a little different tact as opposed to recognizing a specific historic site or whatever. We took the direction of honoring the Native Sons who've passed through these doors. Native Sons and Night Foundry are started in basically within 2 or 3 years of each other. So we've had countless Native Sons pass through these doors, producing equipment for Northern California and the world. So take a look at that, and then we also recognize the contribution that Native Sons have made to now carry on the program to preserve the site. That's it. I want to thank you all for coming, for being here today. I mentioned earlier, if you have a minute, visit Miners Bend and see the other Native Sons site. Also, we'd like you to stay in touch with us. Please sign in. If you're interested to help support Night Foundry, come bring your friends and family back to visit over time. We're implementing a membership program. If you're interested to participate in that, you can sign up and follow Night Foundry more closely. Anything else?
Just your tour. Your tour.
Right. For visiting Native Sons, ASME members, I'm going to do a special tour around the site. ASME, I know, has a program to have lunch downtown a little later, so we'll spend 45 minutes or an hour touring the site in a small group for those who have not been to Night Foundry or those who want to come along and visit the site again. So give us 5-10 minutes. We'll meet over in the old flask yard, which is the open area across the street. We'll meet there in about 5 or 10 minutes, and then we'll do a quick walk around the Foundry site. Thank you all for coming. We appreciate it. Hi, Ed Arata with Night Foundry. We're starting a tour here of the Foundry facility. We've just come in the front door, and we're looking at one of our cranes near the front door. A quick shot of a wooden pattern that was used in the Foundry, and now a large face lathe that is used for turning very large pieces, as the piece there. Moving over into the machine shop, we have another large wooden pattern used for a large gear. These were all handmade in the pattern shop. Some of the artifacts that are found in the Foundry, notice to employees, $2 minimum wage. coming over to the big face planer, and a photo of employees in the machine shop many years ago. Looking over into the area of the office and some of the drawings that would have been made to produce the parts in the foundry. Each part needed a machine drawing to show how it was going to be produced in the foundry and then machined. The nuts and bolts, drawers that were needed to supply fasteners within the foundry. We have a cone that was used in the timber industry. More patterns. We're now moving into the pattern shop, and another pattern for a bevel gear. A large wood turning lathe for making large circular objects in the pattern shop. This is where all the woodworking took place to produce the patterns that would then be used in the foundry. A supply of lumber that had to be continually in the shop to be used for the pattern making process. Knight Foundry is powered with a high pressure water wheel. What we have here is an illustration of how the system works. The water wheel is driven with high pressure water. It turns a belt that drives an overhead line shaft. In addition to the main water wheels in the facility, there are a number of what are called water motors, smaller devices driven again with high pressure water. They were used before electric motors came on the scene, and there are a number of water motors throughout the site. This is a drawing of a early Knight water wheel that would have been used for driving mining equipment, timber industry equipment. We're in the foundry room now. We're looking at the back of the furnace. This is a cupola type furnace, and we're looking at the tuer. There are 4 of these on the furnace. The air enters the furnace to drive the melting process. We're looking at the wall area behind the furnace here. We're looking at one end of a large bed lathe in the machine shop, and we're zeroing in on the faceplate and a center that is used to hold the work material. In the machine shop, one of our very large lathes, this one's unique at the foundry in that it has a head on each end. There are small cranes throughout the facility for lifting the material off and on the machines. A display of some of the castings and parts that were made at the foundry. This one was made for Wemco, a pump company in the Sacramento area. What we have here in the machine shop is a shaper, and we're zooming in on the very small cuttings that's produced by the shaper. A photograph taken in the foundry room of the crew that had just produced that very large drive wheel. We know that this wheel was produced for an ice plant in the Sacramento area. It was cast in the foundry, then it was taken out to the new machine shop and machined, turned, finished, and then it had to be loaded onto wagon and transported to Sacramento.